Contrast paint. Oh, speed paints. Everyone seems to love them. The reviews are awesome, so I managed to get a set. Full disclosure, Army Painter sent this to me free of charge to make the review. I haven't paid for them, but that being said, my opinions will always be my own. They haven't asked to see this video in advance, and they haven't told me what to say. So if you are new to this channel, you might be asking, what makes you a contrast expert? Well, I've been painting with contrast paints for almost 2.5 years now. And after 55 videos of painting with contrast paints to a high standard, I kind of think I know a thing or two about what I like and what I don't like about them, and how to use them to get the best results possible. So I'm really interested to see how these perform and if they will become an addition to my daily painting routine. Since these were announced, it hasn't passed a single day without people asking me, what do I think about them? Well, you are going to see it now. Let's get cracking. Okay, so why don't we start with this little guy here? And I'm just going to try to paint everything as intended. This is the first test after all. I'm not trying to do anything fancy here. Just see how the paint behaves. Or misbehaves, we will see. I'm using palette bone first to base coat all the bony details, of course. Consistency is nice. It moves very well. Nothing here that is any red flags whatsoever. I've chosen this squig first because I had it primed, and secondly because, well, it's the best case scenario with all texture surface, very organic. I'm just going to take Purple Alchemy, which seems to be the pink one, and I'm going to base coat the gums here. If you were speed painting, you would probably try to do this as quickly as possible. You are not going to go around being careful or anything, or not too careful at least. Okay, let's see if we can do something a bit more advanced on some of the teeth. I'm going to take Gravelord Grey and I will try to apply it on the bottom and feather it out to see how that goes. I was hoping for darker grey to cover my sloppy work on the top teeth, and seems like it's working very well. Not sure if it's the dark grey or that it's covering it, or it's just reactivating the paint. I'm going to take now Blood Red. I think it's Blood Red. Yeah, Blood Red, and I'm going to paint the whole body with this. Oh, this is a lovely color, by the way. I like it this better in terms of the color that it's leaving to Games Workshop Blood Angels Red, for example, which is a bit pale for me. This seems to be more in line with the 50-50 mix of that I usually use of Blood Angels Red and Celestials Red, which is very nice. So in terms of hue, this is a big win for Army Painter. Same as with contrast paints, it's better to apply heavy and soak, but these do seem to be a bit more forgiving, at least on this texture surfaces. But yeah, very nice. So let's put this dry and let's take out our next subject. So it's the fan favorite Bob the Test Space Marine, and we're going to paint him blue because, well, I did red for the squig and it kind of seems like I should do this in blue. I'm going to go first for the hardest thing to do, which is the shoulder pads. Again, applying heavy, trying to control this so it moves to where we want it. What I find is they are stickier, so to speak. So with contrast paint seems to be a bit more fluid. This feel stickier, feel like they stick to the surfaces in a different way. Very good result with just one layer. Kind of seems like they are better for one quick coat and forget it. They also seem to be pulling away from the edges way more than what contrast does. So trying again to smooth it out, the places where I see that I don't like. And again, pulling away from the edges a lot. I'm not used to see that. I assure you contrast paints don't do that. Oh, this is dry. Let me test. Oh, whoops. Whoopsie. Oh, spoiler alert. That's not good. Let's leave this to dry a bit more. Seems they apply quite well. Let's give them the best chance possible. And I'm going to leave this to fully dry. And in the meantime, I'm going to bring out my general test. Overall, for their intent, for their one layer approach or one layer solution, they work very well. They are very nice. They flow super well off the brush. You can move them out and place them where you want them. Very nice indeed. So they seem to go on very smoothly. I really like them. I really like how they apply. The original contrast paints, despite being targeted for new painters, the truth is applying them smoothly is not straightforward. You need to understand the correct technique, and it's something that you have to train. It's not really that simple, but once you have that technique nailed down, they are extremely smooth and very pleasant to use. They seem to have a lower entry barrier to contrast paint, so that's a fantastic thing. So if these perform well in the more technical and complex techniques, I think they will be an extremely strong competitor to contrast paints. So why don't we get nerdy and get into the technical testing? So while those two guys dry, let me explain the technical test and what we're going to do. We have 23 paints and 23 columns. This is Corax white, by the way. This is black with a pollingly applied layer of white ink with my airbrush. And what I will do is apply each of the speed paints on the top row, let it dry completely, and I'm going to see if this paint lifts off the ink. So if we can see the black primer, that means it's lifting off the white ink. This is dull Rowney. On the top row, I'm going to leave empty. And once this top row is fully dry, I'm going to go back with my brush with just some water first and see if it reactivates. And if it does, it will show here because I'm going to apply the brush just off here to here. And if we see some paint there, that means it's reactivating. So let's start the test. I'm not using a wet palette or anything, just so I'm not interfering in any way with adding water into it or nothing. Just to have one less variable, I'm using my dry palette here. I have one more mini that I have base coated with black and with white ink Sanithol, so that is 100% not reactivating. This is the same black primer and the same white ink, so I don't know what's happening there, but I'm going to try it here on this conspicuous space. Yeah, so obviously nothing is happening. I'm just going to wipe it away because I don't want it there. So that's all the 23 colors. Now we need to leave them to fully dry and test if they reactivate or not. Okay, so the moment of truth is here. These are fully dry. They seem like they have some wet spot, but trust me, this is just an artifact of pulling it too much. Like contrast paints, they can be a bit shiny, but they are completely dry. And I'm going to see if they reactivate. So let's do this. There you go, look at that. This is a thick layer. I'm sure if you apply it thin, you will probably lift it off completely. Look at that, look at that. Can you see that? 100%. So it seems some colors are worse than others for this, but I can already see that all of them are reactivating in some way or another. Again, this has been drying for a while now, and I even hit them with the hair dryer. Again, some colors are less egregious for this. Some seem to be pretty innocuous to the reactivation. And we have this guy here. I did some tests just after painting. This was drying for about 15 minutes. And you can see what it did to the paint job. But before we do that, this has been drying now for about 15 minutes. So if these are dry, this should be dry now. I'm going to do a small spoiler here. Ooh. Oh boy. Whoop. That's a big oof right there. But let's see. What I will do is leave those paints to fully dry. I will heat them with hair dryer to make them as dry as possible before we do this test again. Catch you in a bit. I have this guy here. I did this test just after painting. This was about 15 minutes and I could 100% lift all of the paint just with a moist brush. Here you can see here and here. So I decided to leave this to dry for longer. It's been several hours now. I hit them with a hairdryer and they are still reactivating. Not as bad as this, but quite bad. Let's test this again over the Mini and see if it goes away. Yeah, there you go. You can see it now. Just you can probably lift this all off if you keep trying. So this is very thin. The thinner you go, the easier it is. And again, it seems to be worse with some colors than others. There are some of the colors which are almost impervious, like this flesh tone here, this camo color here, and the gray seems to be almost non-reactive, but the others are in different grades. Seems like the blues are pretty bad for that. Oh, look at that. Yeah. Look at that. Did you see that? Yeah, I'm just lifting the paint off completely. I'm not being harsh here and just putting water on it and just sloshing it around with the soft fibers of the Kolinsky brush. This is not a harsh test. So I really hope this was useful for you. It was a very interesting experience for me. And while I edit this video, I will leave this to dry more. And if there is any difference in, let's say, a couple days, I will let you know if they keep reactivating after, again, a couple days while I edit this video. So, why do I think about them? Well, that's a very complex question to answer. Because Army Painter never claimed this to be high level or complex technique paints. These were designed to do one thing and one thing alone. This is speed painting. And for that subject, I think they do a very good job. So if what you're looking for is a single coat solution, then you will be very happy with this. And you can even maybe do some rough edge highlights on top without any issues. But what you're looking for is an equivalent paint to contrast paints, then this is not the thing. Contrast paints can do so much more than this. And yes, getting a smooth coat might be slightly more difficult with them than with speed paints. But once you nail the technique, I never had any issues really. But that being said, if you want to use them, you still can. The only thing you have to do is apply all your speed paint layers, then varnish over it with an airbrush or with a can, but I will highly suggest airbrush varnishing. You most definitely can't use a brush over them. They will just bleed out onto the varnish on top. And then you can paint with normal paints on top without any issues. But contrast paints do that and you don't need that extra step in the middle. So it all depends on what you want to obtain from them. You want what it says on the tin? These are perfect. You want something that's more versatile? Then I will strongly suggest you look into contrast paints instead. So thank you very much for watching and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.